Hey everybody, it's Jason Creel and you're watching The Lawn Care Life. I'm with my friend Allyn Hane, the lawn care nut, and we're going to ask him about some spring lawn care tips. Spring's right around the corner and Allyn is the pro at giving the lawn care tips. So we're going to talk about St. Augustine grass, and I've got some questions I've been wanting to pick his brain on. So let's get started right now. Thanks a lot, Allyn, for being with us.
Thanks, Jason.
All right, help me understand this. You know, you're dealing with the DIYer guy, and I'm not an anti-DIYer. You know, I look at myself as I'm a DIYer on my own yard. I do a little experimenting, trying stuff. But you know, I run a weed control and fertilization company. Sometimes, most of the time we get along, you know, but sometimes the DIYer turns his nose up at me and says I could never do it as good as him, and sometimes I turn my nose up at them because they fired me and said they're going to do it themselves, and then I go back a year later, it looks terrible. So, but like, how can the DIYer and the pro like benefit from each other? What can we learn from each other, and so we all get along?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is empathy, right? Putting each other in each other's shoes. Because honestly speaking, a hardcore DIYer's lawn will always look better than the pro lawn for a couple reasons. The first thing is the DIYer sees his lawn every day. So he's always out there, he's working on it, and because he's a DIYer, you would hope that he would have the cultural practices down right. Better mowing, better watering, he would get on top of weed problems sooner, right? If he notices brown patches or some disease coming in, he's on top of it. Whereas the person that may be hiring you that's totally hands-off, that's just like, I'm gonna just leave this out, they may not be mowing properly. The brown spot may have been, you know, festering for 3 weeks, and now it's too late to get into control. So that's one of the challenges you have, and that's where it all really comes down to education. And what we have to do is come together and realize that the education that I'm providing, I hope that it's agronomically sound, and that I hope that the education that I provide for my DIY audience would also be beneficial for one of your customers who may not believe what you're telling them or why you're telling them. Say, well, then go check out this video. And I hear this all the time. Guys will say, they actually have my videos keyed up and they'll say, watch this video from this guy. Yeah. He will tell you the same thing I am, but he's not me. So I'm hoping my content can be used in that way to back up what you guys are saying, because I do try to give good, sound advice.
Now, I've had customers tell me, my customers, they come say, I watched the Lawn Care Nut, he told me this or that, and I've never had them tell me anything I disagreed with, you know, but it'll usually be like something like, well, should I go put some Milorganite on my yard as well, or something like that, you know. Yeah. And sometimes we have a conversation. I'm like, you know, hey, if you want to do that, that's fine. If you know, but anyway, so sometimes there's a balance of like, what are you wanting to handle and what do you want me to handle? But anyway,
they want to supplement. You know, you got those customers, right? They're supplementing in between your applications. So
yeah, if they want to supplement some Milorganite, that's fine. I don't want them supplementing 2,4-D and a triple dose of prodiamine. You know, so those are the ones I got to be careful with.
I agree.
I'm in Alabama. We got mostly Bermuda. We got a little bit of centipede, a little bit of zoysia, and just very little St. Augustine, though I do put a little at my house because we're almost too far north for with the winter. So, and we tell people, like, don't plant it because, you know, if it gets down to 10 degrees, I can't really vouch for the health of it. But anyway, so I want to pick your brain because I know y'all just loaded with St. Augustine grass. Like, moving into springtime, one of the questions I've had is like, what do you do with crabgrass? You know, like, so I'm putting out a pre-emergent right now. I'm trying to prevent crabgrass, and I know St. Augustine doesn't get tons of crabgrass, but what do you do if it never goes below freezing? The crabgrass never dies, it lives year round. Like, what do you do with it?
Yeah, so, well, in that case, you have to use post-emergent for it. You know, Celsius we can use during the summer because there's no heat restrictions. But for the most part, we're still using pre-emergents too. But you're right, this far south of I-4, we're not dealing with tons of crabgrass. We're dealing with other things like signal grass and things like that. So we're still applying pre-emergents. We still do apply prodiamine for the most part as a general pre-emergent, but we also will use atrazine. So I recommend for my DIYers to use, like, there's atrazine weed and feeds out there. I'm not a huge fan of weed and feeds, but like Bonus S is the Scott's version, because atrazine is a pre and post emergent, so that's great during the winter because, again, we don't go dormant. And then I like Pennant Magnum as well because we have a big problem down here, not only with signal grass, but with doveweed and also with sedges, especially Kalinga, and it will suppress those. So just really different, probably different chemistries that we would use, but for the most part, north of I-4, prodiamine is still the gold standard.
Okay. And so if I see a St. Augustine grass, because I can't go anywhere now without looking at the grass. You know, I go play golf and I'm just looking at the weed. I can't make my putt because there's weeds on the green. But if I'm down here in Florida, which we are, and I see some really sad St. Augustine lawns, I know it's not I mean, we're in February, so I'm not judging, but then there's some nice ones, you know. So what would you say are the things, the biggest differences you see between the people that have a nice one or a bad St. Augustine lawn? Is it their, obviously fertilizer stuff helps, but their mowing practices or watering practices, like kind of some basics to help somebody have a nicer lawn?
Yeah, so with St. Augustine this year, we've had a very cold winter. We've actually, here in Lakewood Ranch, Bradenton area, we've gotten into the high 30s at night several times. That happens rarely.
Wow.
So the St. Augustine grass took a beating, but Floratam can handle that for the most part. So the biggest thing I find is most people that live here are from up north, and so up north they're programmed that they don't fertilize in the winter. Everything is shut down, and the thing about it is you have to keep the nitrogen into the grass, and in fact right now is the best time to be hammering nitrogen into your St. Augustine, because you won't get surge growth because the grass is naturally suppressed by the cold, so it can take in that nitrogen. And that's really the thing. The lawns that you see checked out were ones that they stopped fertilizing last year in like September. But me, I continue hammering in those nutrients. Also potassium, big, because it helps with turgor pressure, plant cell moisture, and that helps to hold the moisture in, and then you definitely have to be watering. Same thing, people get lazy coming out of summer here because it rains every single day in the afternoon, so we don't have to run our irrigation. And then you get into like October, November, and it dries out and they don't start their irrigation up, and that'll check it right out the first time it gets cold. So it really is, you got to keep hammering the nitrogen, potash is important, and keep it irrigated.
Okay, and you were talking to me earlier about mowing practices, and everybody, well, I don't know if everybody does, but if you look on Allyn's YouTube channel, if you go to his banner, he's got a tape measure or something showing the mowing height. And I see that, well, like I said, we don't have a lot of St. Augustine grass, but I've got one customer in mind, and the St. Augustine's real stressed out, and I had a friend of mine look at it. He says they're mowing it way too short, you know, because we got Bermuda lawns, people want to keep them 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and he's got St. Augustine in the front, Bermuda in the back. Well, he just keeps that deck at 2 inches and just kills it. I mean, not kills it, but it's so stressed. So what are you, again, trying to have a nice lawn? I'm not saying somebody's going to real mow their yard every day in a perfect lawn, but on St. Augustine, you know, if you're going to mow it once a week, what do you do?
Well, so definitely we want to keep it tall, and the reason for that is St. Augustine grass only spreads with stolons, where your Bermuda's got a more compact growth, and it spreads with rhizomes and stolons. So it's got a little bit different growth habit that way. So St. Augustine only has stolons, which are above ground runners, and they're fat and juicy. And so are the grass blades. They're fat and juicy because that's why it grows in subtropical areas, because those big fat juicy grass blades can grab the water and pull it right down into the roots. That's why the St. Augustine is the way it is. And that's why it's so aggressive. But when you scalp it, again, all of your growth points are already on the surface. And so you're really damaging. You start cutting into those stolons, you're cutting off the lifelines. So with St. Augustine grass, you have to mow as tall as possible, which is tough with some mowers. You know, a lot of residential mowers don't go over 3.5 inches, and I'd rather see St. Augustine at 4, 4.25, 4.5. You miss a mow, and now you're really going to hurt it. So I tell people to mow twice a week. I really do, knowing that most will fail, but I would rather them try to get to twice a week and fail and only mow once a week than to try to mow once a week and fail and go further, right? I'd rather them fail at the perfection rather than succeed at the mediocrity. So that's what it's about.
So if you mow it 5 inches and cut it down to 4, is that okay?
Yeah, it'll be fine. You know, we try to follow the 1/3 rule, but St. Augustine, if you're up tall, you're up in those heights, you can handle it, no problem.
All right, so in my house, I put, I've got Bermuda in the back, but I had some shady areas, and I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to put pine straw out and azaleas and or I decided, you know what, I'm going to go with some St. Augustine. So I kind of plugged it this past year. I've got to get it filled in, but do you think, is my St. Augustine, I don't know the answer, is it going to creep into my Bermuda, or is my Bermuda more likely to creep into my St. Augustine?
So that's interesting. Here in full sun, we have a challenge with that. In fact, Bermuda here is considered a weed because it's not wanted in our St. Augustine grass, and there is no selective herbicide to take it out. So, however, I believe you're going to be good. I don't know what St. Augustine you planted. I hope it was palmetto, because palmetto is the most cold tolerant that I know of.
Okay.
And it's also softer, and it will do better in shade. So the shade should keep the Bermuda out for you.
Yeah.
But yes, the St. Augustine may try to come out a little bit, but you could control that with there are some herbicides. I think quinclorac you could use, won't harm your Bermuda. Or obviously when things are dormant, you could try glyphosate. But yeah, I think the Bermuda will stay out because of the shade. That's its one weakness. Bermuda is the most alpha of the alpha grasses. You can't kill it, but shade is its kryptonite.
Yeah, that's right. I got a few. I'm not worried about the St. Augustine in my Bermuda. I got a few secrets up my sleeve to get rid of that. But the other way, you know, I don't want the Bermuda getting into my St. Augustine.
Yeah.
Will you take a minute and tell me, we're touring your office, appreciate the hospitality, and I've got my enjoy the mow. I actually got the thrower down t-shirt, and so I'm excited about that. But tell us what you're doing, because I know you got a lot going on, and I want to, you know, the audience to hear about what you got going on.
Yeah, so this is actually our Yard Mastery offices. Yard Mastery is my e-commerce business where we ship out fertilizer and biostimulants one by one to homeowners. So you can buy one bag of fertilizer for us, we'll deliver it right to your door. And so this is kind of the brains of our operation. And behind that we have an app called the Yard Mastery app. And the idea there is based on logic, soil temperatures, weather, where you live, grass types. It'll tell you what to throw down and when to throw it down. We also have a soil test that we've white labeled that will also be imported, so then you'll know exactly which fertilizer to use based on your soil test, and we're kind of working it forward from there. So we're kind of a technology company with an e-commerce backbone.
Appreciate Allyn being with us on the show, giving you some frontline knowledge on the St. Augustine grass. I knew he'd know more about it than I do, and you know, I get the same thing. Allyn's got a shirt that says St. Augustine grass is not crabgrass.
Yes,
and
please.
And these, you know, anyway, so hopefully this has been helpful for you. Appreciate you watching. If you haven't done so, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Go check out Allyn, the Lawn Care Nut. If you hadn't heard of his channel, go over and check that out. You know, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.